In a move echoing protectionist policies of the past, former President Donald Trump reinstated tariffs on a wide range of goods imported from China and other countries. This decision, met with sharp criticism from economists and businesses alike, has reignited the debate over the efficacy and fairness of tariffs in a globalized economy. While proponents argue that tariffs protect domestic industries and jobs, the reality is far more nuanced, with the burden of these taxes falling disproportionately on the shoulders of lower-income households. This essay will delve into the multifaceted impact of Trump's tariffs, examining their ripple effects on lower-income families, businesses, and the overall economy. By analyzing data, expert opinions, and real-world examples, we aim to shed light on the true cost of these policies and their implications for the future. Tariffs, essentially taxes imposed on imported goods, inevitably lead to higher prices for consumers. While this impact is felt across income levels, it is the lower-income households that bear the brunt of the burden. These families typically spend a larger proportion of their income on essential goods like food, clothing, and transportation, all of which are directly affected by tariffs. As prices rise, their limited budgets are stretched even thinner, leaving them with difficult choices and potential sacrifices in their daily lives. A study by Yale University's Budget Lab found that the lowest-income households could experience a 4% reduction in their after-tax income due to Trump's tariffs. This stark disparity highlights the regressive nature of these taxes, where the impact is inversely proportional to income levels. The tariffs exacerbate existing inequalities, pushing vulnerable families further into financial insecurity. The impact of tariffs is most acutely felt in the rising costs of essential goods. These tariffs, often imposed as a means to protect domestic industries, have a ripple effect that touches every aspect of daily life. For many families, the grocery store has become a place of anxiety rather than convenience. Food prices, already subject to inflationary pressures, have seen further increases due to tariffs on agricultural products. This means that the cost of basic staples like bread, milk, and eggs has risen, making it harder for families to afford nutritious meals. The added financial strain is particularly harsh on those who are already struggling to make ends meet. From fruits and vegetables to meat and dairy, the cost of putting food on the table has become increasingly challenging for lower-income families. These families often have to make difficult choices, such as buying less fresh produce or opting for cheaper, less healthy options. The long-term health implications of these choices can be severe, leading to a cycle of poor nutrition and health issues. Clothing and footwear, basic necessities for families, have also experienced significant price hikes. The tariffs on textiles and apparel have not only affected the cost of new clothing, but have also impacted the availability of affordable options. Families are finding it harder to purchase the clothing they need, especially for growing children who require new sizes frequently. Tariffs on textiles and apparel, particularly those from China, have driven up the cost of clothing, shoes, and other essential items. This has led to a noticeable increase in the prices of everyday wear, from school uniforms to work attire. The financial burden is felt most acutely by those who can least afford it, forcing many to seek out second-hand options or delay purchases altogether. This burden falls heavily on lower-income families who often rely on affordable clothing options to meet their needs. Discount stores and sales events have become crucial for these families, but even these options are becoming less accessible as prices continue to rise. The struggle to find affordable clothing is a constant challenge that adds to the overall stress of managing a household budget. Transportation costs, a significant expense for many households, have also been impacted by tariffs. The cost of fuel, public transportation, and vehicle maintenance has all seen increases, making it more expensive to commute to work, school, or run daily errands. For many, this means cutting back on travel or finding alternative, less convenient modes of transportation. Tariffs on steel and aluminum, key components in vehicle manufacturing, have increased the prices of cars and trucks. This has made it more difficult for families to afford new vehicles, leading to a reliance on older, less efficient cars that may require more frequent repairs. The increased cost of new vehicles also affects the resale market, driving up prices for used cars as well. Additionally, tariffs on imported parts and components have raised the cost of vehicle maintenance and repairs, further straining the budgets of lower-income families. Routine maintenance, such as oil changes and brake repairs, has become more expensive, leading some to delay necessary work. This can result in more significant issues down the line, creating a cycle of escalating costs and financial hardship. Section 4. The Trump administration's rationale. A flawed logic. The Trump administration justified the tariffs as a means to protect American jobs and industries from unfair foreign competition. They believed that by imposing these tariffs, they could create a more level playing field for American workers and businesses. The idea was that foreign companies, particularly those from China, were engaging in practices that undermined American industries, such as dumping products at below-market prices and benefiting from state subsidies. They argued that these measures would incentivize companies to bring manufacturing back to the United States, boosting domestic production and creating jobs. The administration envisioned a renaissance of American manufacturing, where factories would reopen and communities that had been devastated by offshoring would see a revival. This vision was appealing to many who had seen their livelihoods disappear as companies moved production overseas in search of cheaper labor. However, this rationale has been widely criticized by economists and trade experts as simplistic and flawed. Critics argue that the global economy is far more complex than the administration's narrative suggests. They point out that supply chains are deeply integrated across borders, and disrupting these can have far-reaching consequences. Moreover, the costs of tariffs are often passed on to consumers, leading to higher prices for everyday goods. Tariffs, while potentially offering short-term benefits to specific industries, often lead to unintended consequences that harm the overall economy. For instance, industries that rely on imported materials may face higher production costs, which can lead to layoffs and closures. Small businesses in particular may struggle to absorb these increased costs, leading to a ripple effect throughout the economy. By raising the cost of imported goods, tariffs make domestic products more expensive and less competitive in the global market. This can lead to a decrease in demand for American products both domestically and internationally. As a result, companies may be forced to cut back on production, leading to job losses and economic contraction. Additionally, consumers may find themselves paying more for a wide range of products from electronics to clothing, which can reduce their overall purchasing power. This can lead to retaliatory tariffs from other countries, further disrupting global trade and harming American businesses that rely on exports. Countries affected by U.S. tariffs may impose their own tariffs on American goods, making it more difficult for U.S. companies to compete in international markets. This can lead to a decline in exports, which are a crucial component of the American economy. The resulting trade wars can create uncertainty and instability, making it harder for businesses to plan for the future. Moreover, the notion that tariffs would lead to a resurgence in American manufacturing has not materialized. While there have been some instances of companies moving production back to the U.S., these are relatively few and far between. The high costs of labor and regulatory compliance in the U.S. make it difficult for many industries to compete with foreign manufacturers. As a result, the hoped-for manufacturing boom has largely failed to materialize. While some companies have shifted production back to the United States, these gains have been offset by job losses in other sectors, such as retail and transportation, which are negatively impacted by higher prices and reduced consumer spending. The overall effect has been a mixed bag, with some communities seeing modest gains while others continue to struggle. The broader economic impact of the tariffs has been to create uncertainty and volatility, making it harder for businesses and consumers alike to plan for the future. Section 5. Public Outcry and Economic Warnings. The reintroduction of tariffs has been met with widespread public disapproval and warnings from economists about their potential economic fallout. Across the country, people have taken to the streets to voice their concerns, holding signs and chanting slogans that highlight the negative impact of these trade policies. Economists, too, have been vocal, using public forums to explain the potential dangers of tariffs on the economy. Public opinion polls consistently show that Americans are concerned about the rising cost of living, with many directly attributing these increases to tariffs. In interviews conducted on the streets, individuals express their worries about how tariffs are making everyday goods more expensive, from groceries to electronics. This sentiment is echoed by small business owners who are struggling to keep their prices competitive while facing higher import costs. The economic anxiety fueled by these policies has eroded consumer confidence, leading to decreased spending and slower economic growth. Empty shopping streets and storefronts with "for lease" signs have become a common sight in many towns and cities, reflecting the broader economic malaise. This downturn in consumer activity has a ripple effect, impacting local economies and leading to job losses in retail and other sectors. Economists from across the political spectrum have cautioned against the use of tariffs, citing their potential to trigger a trade war, stifle economic growth, and harm consumers. At outdoor press conferences and public gatherings, they have presented data and historical examples to illustrate the risks associated with protectionist trade policies. Their warnings are clear. Tariffs may offer short-term gains for certain industries, but the long-term consequences are far more damaging. They argue that tariffs are a blunt instrument that fails to address the complex challenges of globalization and often leads to unintended consequences that outweigh any perceived benefits. In debates and discussions, economists emphasize that the global economy is interconnected, and isolating one country through tariffs can disrupt supply chains, increase costs for businesses, and ultimately hurt consumers. They advocate for more nuanced and cooperative approaches to trade policy. Despite these warnings, the Trump administration remained steadfast in its belief that tariffs were a necessary tool to protect American interests. At rallies and public events, supporters of the administration echoed this sentiment, holding signs and cheering for policies they believed would bring jobs back to the United States and reduce the trade deficit. Administration officials argued that tariffs were a way to level the playing field and ensure fair competition for American businesses. However, the evidence suggests otherwise, with the economic costs of these policies far outweighing any perceived benefits. Closed businesses and economic protests serve as stark reminders of the real-world impact of tariffs. As the debate continues, it becomes increasingly clear that finding a balanced approach to trade policy is crucial for the health of the economy and the well-being of consumers.